In the early 1990s, Japan followed in many other developed countries' footsteps by starting the process to implement accessible internet to the public. However, after an earthquake in 1995, the importance of strong communication networks became clear. In November of 1995, Windows went on sale in Japan, leading to the explosion of internet accessibility throughout the country. Today, Japan is one of the leading providers of internet around the world, with over 90% of its population having access. However, with the exponential growth of internet in Japan comes unintended consequences. Recently, the Japan Times reported that over 930,000 teens in Japan suffer from internet addiction, a number almost doubling in the last 5 years. While there isn't a specific number or estimate for the amount of people addicted to the internet in the United States, a study may have this information later this year. However, there are results from studies that can be applied cross-culturally. First, studies conducted in both the United States and Japan found that users suffering from disorders such as sleep problems, depression, trait anxiety, ADHD, autism, and OCD consistently score higher on internet addiction tests. Researchers argue that this correlation may imply that internet addiction is more symptomatic of greater issues. Secondly, the studies found that internet addiction was correlated heavily with cell phone use, and inversely correlated with age. This means that younger and more frequent users have higher risks of developing internet addiction. Finally, a study performed in Japan studied the effects of internet addiction on middle and high school teachers. The researchers found that many, if not all, teachers suffered from a symptom of overworking referred to as burnout syndrome. However, as learned in the Waters texts, Japan's cultural norms prioritize success in work and can lead to mental health effects from overworking in general. The researchers declared depersonalization and decline of personal accomplishments led to burnout syndrome in Japanese school teachers. Moreover, like the first example, they pointed to these factors as root causes that drove teachers towards internet addiction, rather than the technology itself. From a sociological perspective, depersonalization could be explained using Lincoln Phelan's fundamental social causes research. Teachers often are overworked and underpaid, placing them on high amounts of stress with relatively low social autonomy. They state that low power and role overload is a decreased sense of personal control, which is in turn related to symptoms of anxiety and depression. Furthermore, the declined sense of personal accomplishment could be driven by a lack of social regulation, paired with unrealistic work expectations in Japanese culture. According to Durkheim's Suicide, he states that groups who struggle to reach unrealistic goals are bound to suffer serious disappointments. By normalizing overworking, a culture inherently creates a socially unregulated society, one that is bound to foster poor mental health within its members. Teachers suffering from these factors were exponentially more likely to develop internet addiction than non-overworked individuals, which may be another argument for the symptomatic approach towards internet addiction. While there is still ambiguity about whether internet addiction should be classified as a unique disorder or a symptom of already existing disorders, there are clear sociological drivers that are transcultural and cultural specific. Although definitive studies have yet to be performed in the United States, clear similarities of internet addiction can be found in Japanese case studies. However, because this is a relatively new phenomenon, I personally believe that there is still ample amounts of research that needs to be performed before any classification should take place.